Today we will be projecting the Jets pass catchers in 2022. Let's hop into it. All right, so let's hop into today's video. So if you remember when I started this series, we started with Zach Wilson and I had him throwing for 4,023 yards and 24 touchdown passes. So those are the numbers that we are working with. Remember that we are doing this, synced together. We can't be like, oh, this guy's going to have 1,000 yards, this guy's going to have 1,000 yards, this guy's going to have 750, and then, you add it all up and it's 5,000 yards. We can't. In a perfect world, that would be beautiful, but I don't think that's fair or reasonable expectations for a young quarterback. Just over 4,000? Yeah, that's probably reasonable. So let's get it started. My number one receiver, the one who's going to have the most receptions, I have Elijah Moore at 76 catches, 920 yards, 6 touchdowns, 12.1 yards per reception, and 54.1 yards per game. Now, it sucks that I don't have anyone going over 1,000 yards, I know, and I already see the pitchforks and everyone out trying to come and get me, but as I run through this, again, these are the things that I want to hit home. Number one is we are working with a cap at 4,023, so we can't go over that number. And number two, I really think the Jets are going to spread the ball around a lot. So I think there's going to be some guys, who are hanging out with some decent and solid numbers, but I don't think anyone goes over 1,000. If anyone has the best chance to, I think it's Elijah Moore going into his second year. Granted, I am someone who's very high on Garrett Wilson, more on him in a second, but in year one, I don't think he does that. I think he comes a little bit under, but moral of the story, I mean, if Elijah Moore is giving you 76 catches for 920 yards and giving you 6 receiving touchdowns, that's nice. That's really nice. And he could even expand on that going forward. And hell, like I said, maybe he does go over 1,000 yards, but I want to bang home the point that I think they're going to spread it around. So I don't see anyone going that crazy. Garrett Wilson, speak of the devil, 63 catches for 825 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns. That's 13.1 yards per reception and 48.5 yards per game. Those are solid numbers for a rookie. That's average. Now we've seen rookies come in and pop right away. We saw Justin Jefferson put up a ton of yards. We saw, Jamar Chase come into league and put up a ton of yards. But, if Garrett Wilson's hanging in that 800, 900 yard range as a rookie, that's really good. That you'll sign up for that in a second, I think. Again, he is someone who's going to add a little bit of a new element to this offense. Elijah Moore is just a dynamic guy who could play the slot and can play on the outside too. But Garrett Wilson is a little bit more acrobatic. He's still very good with the ball in his hands, like Elijah Moore is, and is a really good route runner, like Elijah Moore is. But Garrett Wilson, I think, is better at high pointing the football, and I also just think he's just how he goes up and contorts his body to make these catches, these acrobatic plays. I think he's the better all-around athlete than Elijah Moore, which, again, not a knock on Elijah. I love him. I think this 1-2 punch at wide receiver is going to be awesome for years to come. I'm so excited for it. Corey Davis is going to be wide receiver 3, and I have him at 51 catches for 522 yards. 3 touchdowns, 10.2 yards per reception, and 30.7 yards per game. Obviously, people are going to look at how much he's getting paid and the 522 yards and say that's not nearly enough. But again, there are many, many, many mouths to feed in this offense, and those are okay numbers. And again, I just think at this point they're going to focus, wide receiver-wise at least, more on, Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. So Corey Davis, while was more of a focal point last year, and towards the end of his career in Tennessee, I think he's probably at best their third option in the passing attack. So his numbers are going to take a little bit of a hit this year. That doesn't mean that he's going to be ineffective. I think that's an effective year for where he is in terms of reception totals. But overall, it's not maybe where people think it's going to be this year, and it's a little bit lower. But if that's the case, then maybe they end up moving on from him after this upcoming year, but that's not something we have to worry about right now. Braxton Berrios, I think, again, he's really reliable for the Jets last year. I had him at 21 catches for 311 yards and 1 touchdown. That is 14.8 yards per reception and 18.3 yards per game. Again, this is someone who I think, similar to Corey Davis, is one that I might get some slack on or get hit on a little bit, but again, there's a lot of people who are going to be demanding the football. If there's injuries, maybe that number goes up a little bit higher even, but remember the 2 tight ends added in Breece Hall and Michael Carter, who we haven't gotten to yet either. So Braxton is extremely reliable as a returner. He's someone who Zach Wilson really likes a lot. But when you look at just this team in general, I see him as, someone who's maybe, a couple of catches a game kind of a guy, which is fine because he's, extremely versatile as a returner. So you're still getting your value there. Let's go to the tight ends now, and then we're going to kind of go back to receiver and running backs at the end here a little bit. But CJ UZOMAH, I had at 29 catches for 305 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 10.5 yards per reception, and 17.9 yards per game. That's solid, steady production. It's a little bit down from where he was last year, but his counterpartner, who I'm going to talk about in a second, I think is actually going to turn some heads and put up a little bit more receiving yards than CJ UZOMAH. So I have CONKLIN, who we were just talking about here, at 40 catches, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10.1 yards per reception, and 23.8 yards per game. That's a really nice split down the middle. So combined, they're at just 710 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's a massive improvement from what the Jets were getting at the tight end position over the last couple of years. And we haven't gotten to Jeremy Ruckert yet, who I think will probably be a little bit in a smaller role. I had him at 7 catches for 65 yards and no touchdowns. That's 9.3 yards per reception and 3.8 yards per game. I think he's just going to catch a couple balls this year. If someone gets banged up, he'll come in, maybe a little bit more of a blocking role in year 1. He's a developmental guy, so I don't see him as a huge role kind of a piece. But just overall, again, I think those 3. So then you add those 65 yards on top of that 710 yards, and now you're at almost 800 receiving yards from your tight end room, which is good, which is really good actually for this Jets team who hasn't gotten a damn thing out of their tight end room in a long time. So, and once again, I want to stress this, when you're doing projections like these and you have the hard cap of, for me, I set it at 4,023. It's hard to go through and pick out who's going to get what kind of receiving yards. DENZEL MIMS, I ended up giving the wide receiver 5 spot to. I had him at 12 catches, 135 yards. His first receiving touchdown of his career. So 1 receiving touchdown, 11.3 yards per reception, and 7.9 yards per game. I'm rooting for Denzel. I like him a lot. I would think maybe in this scenario, the Jets would decide to move on from Corey Davis and run with Braxton and Denzel at that point to fight out for, the wide receiver 3 and 4 spot. And then you would still have CONKLIN, UZOMAH, and Jeremy Ruckert in year 2. So a lot of weapons to go around, and we didn't get to the running backs yet, which is what we can do right now, man. Michael Carter, he's going to be utilized. 24 catches. I had 175 yards, 1 touchdown receiving for 7.3 yards per reception and 10.3 yards per game. I think he is going to be extremely versatile as, someone out of the backfield. We saw it already in his rookie year. As a rookie, he was impressive, I thought, in the receiving game, and he's still going to continue to get those opportunities. And so is Breece Hall, who is sneaky, very good out of the backfield also. 41 catches for Breece Hall, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 8.8 yards per reception and 21.2 yards per game. To round out a total of 4,023 yards and 24 touchdowns, which is what I had Zach Wilson at. 364 receptions is where I had Zach Wilson's completions at. The Jets, as I said, all video long, they're going to really spread the ball around a lot this year. And it shows as there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people with at least 300 receiving yards. And you have 2 people over 800, and the Jets tight end room is, 775, I think, between CONKLIN, Ruckert, and UZOMAH. So there we go. Those are how I'm breaking down the Jets receiving totals for this year. Let me know what you think. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree, which is fine. That's the fun of this right now, and it's just predictions. It's projections. So sound off in the comments or on social media. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.